Hello everyone, this is update for March 22, 2024, day 758 of the war and of the date update. Also catch up for March 21 and 20. So I'm gonna start as always with general strategic updates, and then I'm gonna switch to the walk through the front line. First is I'll start with Russia. Russian president went through the, I would say, perfunctory ceremonial procedure of self-reappointing. That procedure has been completed successfully for him. Now he has carte blanche to do what he wants, and specifically intensify the war against Ukraine. As part of that, his spokesperson gave a speech, I think yesterday or actually on the 22nd, where finally there is admission that Russia is in a state of war. There is no longer use of euphemism of special military operation, which is everyone who understands this is just, as I said, just a cover up for war. So now there's, let's say, honest admission that this is a war. And there's honest, there's honest statement of the goal is for Ukraine to cease to exist, but it's stated as the country that threatens Russia cannot exist next to Russia. So I think at this point the goals at least are very clear. It is very clearly defined that this is the war. This speech is not a random. It's obviously, thought out. The timing of it is also thought out very carefully. It's happening after this self-reappointing ceremony, which basically sets the policy of what's going to happen next in Russia with respect to Ukraine, in general, with respect to the rest of the world. So basically, external policy of Russia. So based on all of this is just basically, explanation of the sort of next steps, what might be happening, what the plans of the Russian political top, that apparently he wants to mobilize additional 300,000 people, maybe more, maybe less, but this is all on the level of rumors, but it makes sense, I would say. I'd say highly probable rumors. And there is apparently desire to actually declare formal war against Ukraine. And for that, you need a casus belli. And this mass murder in Moscow that happened probably was an attempt to create such a casus belli, to declare formal war against Ukraine, and then declare mobilization, so mobilize society, so society understands why there is mobilization, why there is need sort of for forced conscription, because so far Russian president tried to spare society from the problems of the war. As I stated before, it really looks like how Hitler was running Germany in, let's say, 1941, 1942, until he was forced to sort of not to spare German population and sort of throw everything into the war, which was at that point too late. But this is very similar situation in Russia. Russian population generally was spared of the war, and so you need very solid explanation why this is happening, and this senseless attacks against the Belgorod region of Russia by Ukrainian forces really help Russia more than anything. Plus this mass murder, this could be, as I stated, reason for casus belli. If it's going to materialize or not, I'm not sure, but it was a very clear attempt to do that. If this fails, it's probably going to be another opportunity, another attempt to fabricate this casus belli, and eventually it will happen one way or another. It's just at what attempt it will succeed. That's the only question at this point. So hopefully that really explains what's going on there in Russia, let's put it this way. Now I'm going to switch to Ukraine and talk about Ukrainian problems. So first, Ukraine, I mentioned this before, and it's becoming more and more obvious that Ukrainian parliament is essentially non-functioning and close to the situation when it ceased to exist. So, for example, Ukrainian president has its majority in the parliament. So Ukrainian parliament, just to give you a little bit background, is 450 people. Majority is 225 to 226. Ukrainian president had 250, I think, 4 or 5 at the beginning when he was elected, and it was slowly going down. At this point, he has 235 people in the parliament. So he has full control of the parliament. He had all this time since his election. And at this point, out of this 235 people, only about 160, 170 show up to the parliament in general. The rest is just no show, but basically informally telling that they wanna, release their duties and basically disappear and have no responsibility for anything. So for this reason, as I stated, the Ukrainian parliament is not really functioning, and it's probably going to get only worse. And for the reference, the term for Ukrainian parliament has run out last fall. Don't remember. I think it was in October of 23. So at this point, it's really not very legitimate body of the politics. So and this is what I was trying to explain. Once the legitimacy is gone, essentially the body of the politics stop functioning, because it's internally, it's a nature, sort of the beast nature. It's a DNA. Everybody understands that they making illegitimate decisions and don't want to have responsibility, because they understand there could be eventually accountability for what you do. And so nobody wants to do that, especially there's no upside. There is only downside, and it's very, calculated decision. Especially most of these people came there to loot public funds. They paid to get into parliament up north of more. Typically, the minimum ticket was 10 million US dollars for the seat in parliament. And so, obviously, when you spend that money, you expect to earn much more. So basically, return on investment. And when people voluntarily relinquishing their seats, when they spend, most of them spend much more than 10 million, could be 15, 20, 25. You're losing your investment, and it doesn't happen, out of blue. Let's put this way. It's really, this people. It's really highlighting their intent in the first place. Why they were there. They were not there to serve the public. They were there to serve themselves at the expense of the public, and that's becoming very apparently clear at this point. Now I'm going to switch to Ukrainian government, which is, I mentioned before, is actually much bigger danger to Ukrainian survival than actually Russian aggression. So what the Ukrainian government is doing now, they increase taxes on the petroleum products to European levels. So the price for gasoline or diesel fuel in Ukraine used to be around $1 per 1 liter, which Ukrainian economy can tolerate. Now it's pushing towards closer to $2 per liter, which is self-destructive, right? When you want, you need resources to fight the war, to make economy grow. You're essentially suffocating. You're doing exactly opposite of what needs to be done, and that again highlights that there's extreme level of incompetence, and as I mentioned also before, usually incompetence comes together with corruption. It's 2-in-1 type of package, which is pretty much always comes together. So again, this is will hurt Ukrainian economy even more. There's not much left of it, and it's just going to destroy even what's left over at this point. Then Russia, there another important update is that Russia destroyed power generators at a hydropower station in Zaporizhya. It's called Dnipro. This is the most important hydropower station in Ukraine. So as you see, there is sort of cascade of multiple hydropower station along the Dnipro River. Essentially, all Dnipro River is turned into one big power station. And this one is the most important. That has largest installed capacity. This was actually it's important not even because the amount of energy it produces and because it's extremely cheap energy, close to be sort of free. The importance was that it served as an accumulator or buffer for the entire energy system of Ukraine, and that buffer is important, so it cannot be, let's say, underestimated. It's essentially the linchpin of the entire system, because energy system is kind of like ecosystem. Each type of source of energy plays its own role, and you need it for various reasons. So, for example, Ukraine has nuclear power stations, but there is a significant disadvantage for nuclear power stations. You cannot just increase and decrease electricity production as needed. So basically, they're not flexible enough. They kind of like, in some ways, it's like diesel engine. You increase slowly and then you stable, and that's the most efficient way, and you don't move it up or down. You just kind of like keep it at this steady level. But as we all know, demand for electricity varies quite a bit throughout the day and throughout the time of the year. So there's huge variability. So you need some kind of buffer or accumulator during this to address this variability. And hydropower stations is the best way, actually the most ecological way to do it. This is talking about this sort of so-called green energy. This is the best solution we have. It's not ideal. I'm not saying it's perfect. It creates its own ecological problems, but on a grand scheme of things, it's least damaging to environment. Let's put this way. This essentially hydropower station allowed Ukrainian system to sort of survive through Russian attacks. Now that stability has been removed. The only option at this point for Ukraine is going to be to basically have that stability, is to borrow from Poland and Romania as needed. But that's going to be very, very expensive. So again, this is going to be another extremely negative for Ukrainian energy, because this will force significant increase in electricity prices in Ukraine. So again, this is seemingly just, I would say, not important event, but it's actually in the long run, it's strategically extremely important and will have very negative repercussions for Ukraine. The other topic I would like to discuss is this attacks against oil refineries in Russia. So Ukraine just did another attack, and obviously it's successful. And this is something that really Ukraine can use as effective leverage against Russia. That truly creates significant problems for Russia, and it actually also strategic threat to Russia. To the point that it can derail this war machine if done successfully and over a long period of time. And when Ukraine gets slapped, in this case by the US, for doing that, it's really, I would say, disingenuous, because it's preventing Ukraine from doing something that's actually working, that actually effective, and it actually creates least casualties. So basically, you're winning the war by killing least people possible on both sides. By the way, so and the reason that is it's purely political reason for that is because the prices, obviously, of petroleum products and crude are remaining high, and there is effectively inflation in the West. But that inflation is, in the first place, is a result of the war on conventional energy in the West. So the real answer is to reverse the policy in the West and allow, production of abundance of energy in production and cheap energy. That's how the Soviet Union was defeated in the 80s, in the late 80s. That's really the only solution to this, not handicapping Ukraine to the point that Ukraine really cannot really fight. There's no, as we all know, military equipment coming at large scale at this point. It's really down to tiny streams, and so there is this kind of like asymmetric answer that Ukrainian military has found, and that's really working, I would say. And the longer it's being done, the more devastating effects are on the Russian energy and refineries and ability to continue the war. So again, this is very, I would say, unhelpful situation, and as we can see, Ukraine continues those attacks because in the end it's about Ukrainian survival, not because someone sort of wants something because of their political preferences and political ideology. Now I'm going to switch to the situation on the front line, and I'm going to do a walkthrough in a clockwise fashion, the way I always do, starting from very north. So the situation along the state border remains more or less stable, with the exception of this misguided attacks by Ukrainian side that really don't do anything military-wise, anything. It just actually makes it worse strategically for Ukraine, because it can be also presented by Russia to international community as attacks against the civilians, and it's always emotional argument for many people work, because they go to emotional argument first before thinking rationally. And at the same time, Russia does not have enough resources to do any kind of invasion from this area towards Ukraine. The reason for that is because now Russia has expanded its border with NATO because of the exception of Finland, Sweden, and then obviously the Baltic states. So this 300,000 people might be needed simply to cover that border essentially for Russia. And by the way, that forgot to mention when I said the problem mobilization is coming. Another sign that it's coming is that Russian Ministry of Defense stated that they're creating 14 new divisions and I think 6 new brigades. I might be like somewhat off, but I think for divisions it's pretty much correct. Because brigades might be 8, maybe 7, maybe 5, but somewhere in that ballpark. But it's a significant number of troops, which roughly, not exactly, corresponds to 300,000 people. So again, this is coming, but it seems that it's more of the plugging the hole against Finland, Baltic states, and obviously on the front line in Ukraine, because Russian troops also having losses, they're thinning out, and so there is need obviously for replacement, because this so-called not volunteer but people who sign contracts voluntarily, there is a lot of skepticism that Russia really gets what they claim of roughly 30 to 40,000 people per month. If anything, that river is probably becoming a stream slowly but surely. It's something similar Russia is going through what Ukraine already gone through, meaning that there is a certain percentage of population that really is willing to sacrifice without sort of asking too many questions, and they go fight, and Ukraine already used up that resource. So that's why you see this forced mobilization where Ukrainian mobilization authorities using physical force to mobilize Ukrainian soldiers. And Russia is still going through that resource, but it's dwindling. And it's probably coming towards the end sometime, I don't know, probably end of summer. So at that point, that it's becoming a acute problem for Russia to basically resort to what Ukrainian government doing right now, physical mobilization using physical force. So if this war continues, that is coming to Russia as well. It's just delayed because, again, it's much bigger country, at the minimum 3 times, and I would say at this point 4 times larger, if not 5. So that is coming, but right now Russia does not have resources for major offensive. They may try to do the squeezes. They tried. They were successful in Avdiivka, as we all know. But the level of pressure went down dramatically overall on the front line. Again, this might be related to this self-appointment ceremony that Russian president went through, and there is sort of new plan, new strategy, and you need to sort of take a break and prepare for the next step. So we'll see. It probably will be clear in the coming weeks. But sorry for digressing. Now I'm going back to the walk through the front line. So let's just jump now to the situation on the North Lugansk front line. Things again fairly quiet. Some very perfunctory Russian pressure on this road towards Kupiansk, and also from northeast of Kupiansk. But again, this is at a very low level, totally manageable by Ukrainian forces. Now let's move to the North Donbass front line. Northern sector is fairly quiet. Nothing going on there. Even the southern one is also extremely quiet. It's almost pretty much actually totally quiet at this point. Don't have, again, this ties to this whole what I said, that there is significant reduction in Russian activity, and we'll see what comes out of it. It's all I can say at this point. It's very unusual. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line. Things here again the same. Very significant reduction in Russian activity west of Avdiivka. Actually, south in this Marinka slash Novomykhailivka area, activity actually higher than up north west of Avdiivka. But both are significantly higher from their, significantly lower from their peaks, which again, as I stated, there is something is going on. Something is being prepared behind the scenes. Let's put it this way. Now let's move to the Zaporizhya front line. Here also pressure remains in the two same areas. This Velika Novosilka area. There's Russian attempts to push back, but they so far are being held at bay. And similar situation in this Robodino, where it's half captured by Russian troops, but they cannot sort of finish capturing. They got stuck, exhausted. There's not enough resources, and so on. So at this point, it's a stalemate there. So basically, it's all returning to World War One in this whole situation. And let's finish with the situation along the Dnipro River. Things here are quiet. There is no opportunity for Ukraine, and Russia also doesn't have resources to eliminate the bridgehead. So status quo remains. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.